G'day folks, welcome back to a market update for the 29th of August 2024. Here we're going to be covering the S&P 500, the Nasdaq, the German DAX, the Japanese Nikkei, gold, silver, copper, US crude, Bitcoin, platinum and a US dollar. So stay tuned, we're going to go through each of the trend bias analysis for each of these. So first looking at the S&P 500 on the monthly, we're still bullish, although it's pulling back on the CCI 150 towards the moving averages, but otherwise still bullish. We do have a bearish divergence on the monthly, a very long-term divergence. On the weekly, it's actually broken down into a bearish momentum below the moving averages. And on the daily, likewise, it's been bearish, a fresh breakout to the bearish side after hitting that resistance at 56.67. If we go to the hourly chart, you can see there we had a pretty strong breakdown on the CCI, along with the price, a bit of a mild breakdown. But again, respecting that that resistance up there at 56.67. So at the moment, we go predominantly short. Our bias indicator is giving us bearish signals. And likewise, the CCI 150 has broken down, so just be careful of that. Also, we do have a bearish divergence here on the CCI versus higher highs on the price, and it's starting to pull back from there. The Nasdaq is giving us a nice bullish move on the upside. On the monthly chart, on the weekly, it's actually broken down into a bearish momentum below the CCI 150. And on the daily, it's also bearish after having a bit of a bull run there in the last few days, but then it's finally broken down into the bearish momentum at the moment. And it's after hitting this resistance at 27.60. And you've got to respect this 17.243 major support level. At the moment on the 1 hour chart, we've got a bearish bias indicator showing up here, so bearish movement, and that aligns with this break below on the CCI 150. And likewise on the 1 hour chart, we've got lower highs there versus higher highs on the price, and that's starting to break down as well in that momentum. The German DAX is actually showing a neutral positioning on the monthly. It's broken into that moving average range. Although notice we've got a very long-term bearish divergence here versus higher highs on the price. On the weekly, had another bearish divergence. It's actually broken up into that neutral positioning at the moment and threatening to break higher. But again, I'll call that neutral. We did have a couple of bearish divergence, and that first one was met that minimum target range between a 23-38% level. And on the daily, we've hit this key resistance area once, and it's approaching that second time on that key resistance at 18.936 after breaking through that minor resistance at 18.652. So again, keep an eye on that. It's actually bullish on the daily, above that CCI 150. On the hourly chart, it's predominantly still a bearish bias indicator as shown here with these arrows, and even though it's broken above that minor resistance, we do have a bearish divergence there versus higher highs on the price, so just be mindful of that. We do expect it to break to the downside. It may possibly break higher and hit that key resistance at 18.93, whatever that was, 18.936. So it may actually break higher, but we'll keep an eye on that. But we've got this bearish divergence, so be mindful of that, about going long too soon. Japanese Nikkei on the monthly is broken down into that below the moving averages, giving us a bearish signal. Had a nice, you can see that it's still above the moving average to the price chart, but on the monthly it's broken into a bearish momentum. On the weekly, had a bearish divergence here, still working out versus higher highs on the price. Actually broke down, hit our target area, and bounced out from there after that massive spike down we had a few weeks ago. And on the daily, it's actually broken into the neutral positioning, just into that range of the moving averages of the CCI 150 after hitting that resistance at 42.500 and bounced off that minor support at 33.80. On the daily and hourly chart, our bias is still bearish, even though the daily is still somewhat neutral to bullish. And on the hourly chart, that's also giving us another bearish divergence versus slight higher highs on the price chart on the hourly chart. Going to gold, gold is showing bullish momentum on the monthly, making new highs. On the weekly, still bullish, still above the CCI moving average range there with those new highs. And on the daily, still bullish as well. It's actually broken above that previous resistance we had at 25.09 and currently resting around that resistance area. On the 1 hour chart and the daily, our bias signal is showing bearish movement, so just be careful about going long too aggressively. You see there the CCI is also breaking further to the downside. On the 1 hour chart, we do have we had a bearish divergence there between those highs versus higher highs on the price, and currently it's actually fluctuating around that resistance, as I said, and we're looking like we're going to be making a break to the downside possibly if this CCI keeps falling. So I'll just keep an eye on that, cautiously avoid going long at this point until we see a more substantial break to the upside. Silver is still showing bullish momentum on the monthly. On the weekly, it's actually broken down below our moving average range of the CCI, giving us a bearish momentum. And on the daily, likewise, it's still neutral. Even though the price is broken above its moving average range, it's still neutral on the daily and possibly going to break to the downside within a bearish momentum. On our 1 hour chart, on the daily here, we've got the bearish bias indicator showing up. So again, showing a bearish divergence between those highs versus higher highs on the price, and it finally broke down. We may see further decline as opposed to the weekly and the daily showing bullish momentum, but the daily is actually breaking into that neutral positioning and possibly going to break to the downside shortly in the coming hours and days. So just be careful about that going long. Bearish bias at the moment. High grade copper showing a neutral positioning at the moment on the monthly, bearish to neutral on the weekly, and neutral also on the daily after having a bit of a bull run in the last few days, but it's actually finally broken to the neutral positioning. It's possibly going to approach back towards this moving average range, so just be mindful of that and avoid going long until we see more positive movement. On the daily chart here, you can see they've got that bearish bias indicator. Also on the 1 hour chart, we've actually got pretty much a double top almost. Slight highs on the CCI versus much higher highs on the price. That's a bearish divergence, and we may actually see a break further to the downside. But again, we'll wait to see what it does on the daily to take positions on the hourly, but at the moment it's neutral on the daily with our bias indicator on showing bearish movement. US crude on the monthly, it's been fluctuating sideways, and it's actually finally broken down again into a bearish momentum on the monthly. On the weekly, it's been bearish for a number of weeks now, and on the daily, it's been fluctuating up and down in that moving average range, giving us a slight bullish momentum. But again, I'd suggest that's probably more of a bearish outlook in line with the weekly time frame. Going to the daily and hourly chart, on the daily, still showing a bearish bias. On the hourly, we did have this break to the downside. There's no divergence to talk of. That CCI is moving in line with the price, but still predominantly bearish momentum in line with the daily. Looks like it's still moving to the downside possibly, but giving us a potential bearish to neutral positioning. Bitcoin is finally broken into that neutral positioning on the monthly after having a nice big bull run. On the weekly, it's bearish, broken below the moving averages of the price as well as the CCI 150. And on the daily, it actually broke above this minor resistance here at 62,560, broken to the downside. And you can see it's showing also a bearish momentum on the daily CCI 150. Our daily bias is bearish, and our hourly chart here is showing, you can see there it's hard, that was showing a bearish divergence versus higher highs on the price, and that was a pretty strong decline after that bearish divergence eventuated. And currently it's actually broken up into that moving average range with a possible slight retracement to the upside in the coming hours and days. We'll keep an eye on that, but still on the daily it's still showing a bearish bias. Platinum is pretty much sideways on the monthly. There's no CCI for it on the monthly chart. On the weekly, we've broken down into our bearish momentum below the moving averages of both the price and the CCI. And on the daily, it's actually also bearish below the moving averages of both the price and the CCI, and possibly going to approach this support at 908. On the daily, bias indicator showing bearish momentum, also the CCI broken below the moving averages. And on the hourly, that seems to be moving in line with the price, and there's no divergence to speak of. But at the moment, it's making a bit of a move to the upside on the hourly, but I wouldn't be going long until I saw that break above the moving average range of the CCI on the daily. Lastly, the US dollar. Now, that on the monthly, that's showing a bearish momentum, and that was after this long-term bearish divergence which we drew versus higher highs on the price versus a bearish divergence on the CCI. It actually broke down, hit our minimum target range, and that minimum target range, for those new to the channel, is a 23-38% level between a recent range, and that would have been that range there. Between a 23-38% level, we take it back to the previous significant low, and that's our minimum target range anticipated for that bearish divergence. On the weekly, it's also a bearish momentum, broken below the moving averages of both the price and the CCI. And on the daily, it's actually finally broken into that neutral positioning on the daily. The price is still pretty much bearish at the moment, broken below this minor support at 10,181. And if we go to the daily, we still have a bearish bias. You can see that red arrow there. That's still giving us a bearish bias. And on the hourly chart, we've got a bullish momentum actually. So if we draw that down to that point there, we always extend it in line with the price and the CCI movement. That's still showing us a bullish divergence versus lower lows on the price. Hasn't had a significant bounce yet. We want to see it break higher. And if we did anticipate it to break in terms of a target range, we take it to from the low to the significant high before that divergence started. And our minimum retrace level would be that 23-38% level. Hasn't hit it yet, but it looks like it's coming towards that potential in the coming hours and days, so just be mindful of that. I wouldn't be going long or short on the intraday until I saw that break higher on the daily, or continue short positions if that broke down to the downside on the daily. So thanks for watching. Hit that like and subscribe button for further updates, and we'll see you in the future. Thank you very much.